Hey y'all, welcome to Shade in the City. It's your girl Treese here. But we're here to do episode 147 of Beyond the Gates. If you have not already, all of my Beyond the Gates Shade Squad and all the new viewers, please hit that like button, okay? And if you are liking the vibe, please go ahead and subscribe, okay? I love the way we are growing and glowing. And I just ask that y'all continue to help us glow and grow. We appreciate it. All right. So, y'all, let's get into this episode because it was a lot. It was good. Okay. In comparison to everything we got, it was a lot of Bill, a lot of Danny, Andre, but it was good. It was good. So, let's get into it. From skyline pain, shade in the city, true hit like a banger. I said it, I meant it, no need for disclaimers. Haters right away, but they just false claimers. Concrete beats are heavy like cinder. Looking for one, but the streets feel winter. No filters, no edits, I'm raw with my splinters. My life a movie, they watching the trailer. I'm not gonna hold you. Shade in the city, the life and the mood. You like and subscribe if you feeling the vibe. This is my word, I just let you inside. City, I'm not gonna hold you. Shade in the city, my words gon' console you. Like and subscribe if you feeling the vibe. We start off, we see good old Bill. He's on the phone with Keegan. Okay. He's directing him to go find dirt on Andre. And even tells him, go find them women that he been messing with in Europe. Okay. I want to find some information that can be verified. So instructs him that he wants him to go tell Andre so he can find out if he's stepping out on his daughter's mother, even though we heard him say he was getting ready to slip up and say his wife. Okay. So over at Danny's house, her and Andre are all cuddled up after a night of marital bliss. Okay. And so Andre is telling her how beautiful she is and refers to her as Danny Dupree. And Danny corrects him and reminds him that, oh no, she's a Richardson now. No, Donnell has walked into Uptown and he spots Vanessa and Joey. And so Vanessa was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, well, I was getting ready to ask you the same damn question. So Nicole comes over to visit Anita, and Anita is waiting up for Vernon, and she's like, so what's on your mind? So Nicole tells her, well, I'm concerned about Martin and, how I can help save his family. Martin and Smitty have gone down to the country club to have a date night, and Smitty orders Martin's drink for him, okay? So Martin was like, oh, you still remember, okay? And so Smitty tells him, look, I ain't trying to look back. I'm trying to concentrate on moving forward. Let's do that. So then Donnell and Jacob sit down with Joey and Vanessa to hear this explanation of why y'all here. So Joey claims, look, I hijacked Vanessa after seeing her in the parking lot. And she looked like she was going through a lot, trying to keep things together. So I thought she could use some company versus going home to all the food. And literally my notes say that we supposed to be eating. So Donnell says, look, I understand. And, watching the tape of Doug was tough. And so Joey tells him, well, despite what you saw in that tape, that was not Doug McBride. Okay. That wasn't one of his best moments. So Jacob apologizes for showing him the video and was like, damn, maybe I should have waited. And Donnell was like, nah, I admit I pushed you. And I felt like piecing together my dad's last moments would give me what I needed. Over at Danny's house, Andre is asking Danny, oh, so were you just pillow talking or were you serious about, taking my last name? And so she admits, honestly, yeah, I just really feel like I'm just getting back to being Danny Dupree. And so, yeah. And she's like, is that going to bother you if I don't take your last name? And he tells her, you know what? You are always a one name woman to me. And that's Danny. I said, oh, I love it. So Danny thanks him and was like, it's because of you that I'm back to being me. And so Andre tells her, nah, you would have gotten there anyway. But he lets her know that, look, I've also never felt so free or full with anybody. And I was like, oh, I'm liking this. I'm starting to like this a little bit more. It's weird, but unconventional, but I'm starting to like this for both of them. Back at Bill's house, Bill is telling Keegan that getting Andre out of Danny's life and her bed is top priority, and he demands that Keegan find something that he could use. So conveniently, Haley walks in and he gets off the phone and he's like, oh, how long you been there? And Haley's like, long enough. And even though she ain't really mad about nothing. So after their little session, Andre realizes that Danny is hungry. And so Danny requests that he go down to Orphy Jeans and he get her some duck sliders, some fried green tomatoes, some collards, and some cornbread. And I said, that sounds real good. Real good. I don't know about the duck sliders, but that fried green tomato, I love me a good fried green tomato. Okay. And the collards, cornbread, Danny, we see each other. Okay. So Andre tells her, say less. Okay. And so she throws him the keys to her Maserati And he rolls out. And as soon as he leaves, she starts having her flashbacks to her kiss with Bill. And I said, well, it never lasts long, does it? So Bill is trying to explain himself to Haley, and she's fussing about how, he has no boundaries and basically bringing his work home. And Bill goes with it, obviously, because he realizes she didn't connect the two pieces to connect the dots, right? Okay, so Bill just goes with it because he realizes that, hasn't connected the dots. So he's like, oh yeah, I'm caught. Sue me. Right. And so Haley was like, you know what? I thought that I made the house, a work-free zone. And I thought I did that by, walking around here with my ex out every 5 seconds. And that, that would entice you to leave your work at the office. Right. But this is clearly just who you are. And I'm annoying as hell. So I can understand why you might want to work versus actually spend time with me, And Bill said, well, you either taking it or you leaving it. And she was like, oh no, Bill. Because, we're going to be happily ever after till do us part. Okay. Now, back over at Uptown, Vanessa empathizes with Donnell and, his grief. She lets him know that she plans to be there every step of the way. And Donnell feels bad because he was like, I feel like I hurt you by making you sit there and watch that footage. And he was like, and I feel like I can't quiet the voice in my head that wants answers. So Joey said, well, you know what? All the man says, hey, you hungry, ain't you? Let's order some food. But Donnell, is like, I don't think I can eat. Jacob been trying to tell me the same thing. So Joey tells Donnell and Jacob, well, I hope that Drake was helpful to you guys. And Donnell says that, well, not really. I laid into Drake for not calling Doug a rideshare, even though he ended up saying that he did try to call a rideshare and Doug was gone. And so Jacob said, unfortunately, everything Drake says matches up with what they saw on the tape that night. And so, but he said, I did tell him to stay in town just in case. And Joey said, well, you may not be able to bring Doug back, but we all want you to feel like the answers to your questions have been answered. Donnell thanks him, right? And it was just so awful because, Joey's like, oh, okay, of course. And he starts sharing how he can relate to Donnell and how he feels because his mother made a reckless decision that led to, her passing. And as we know, I think Joey had mentioned this before in like month 1 of Beyond the Gates. That would have been March, probably February, March, about losing his mother to plastic surgery. And he said that he went on a journey looking for answers until he realized that it was his mother who went shopping for surgeons, and she just happened to find one that didn't know her previous medical history. Now, I know I saw something on Twitter where people were speculating possibly that maybe this could have been Doug, and that's why he had a vendetta out for him. But I don't know if I just can't imagine him not letting us know that he made that connection a long time ago. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not saying it can't be possible and it can't come out. I don't see the dots aren't connecting for me. Donnell asked, well, what did you do once you had all your receipts? And Joey said, I mourned her. And he lets Donnell know that once all of your questions are answered, you can look at the entirety of your dad's life and not just one night. And so Donnell's like, oh, thank you for helping me accomplish that. And I literally said, it's a weird bonding moment because obviously we know Joey is responsible for Doug's, or is supposed to be responsible for Doug's accident. Okay. So I was like, oh, it feels so wrong. And then we just have a short, cute little moment with Martin and Smitty down, So Martin is telling Smitty that, oh, I feel like we're on a first date. And so then I guess he gets real bold and decided he gonna just order the whole menu. And I was like, okay, Martin, we have a large appetite, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I like to eat too, but Jesus. So Joey's explaining to Donnell that no one ever shows their entire self, but the version that Doug showed Donnell and Deanna is the only one that counts. So he tells them, look, I'm going to go. And Vanessa and Donnell, they're like, no, you should stay. And so Donnell even said, look, I'll pick it up. You know what I mean? For all you've done, Joey. And I said, this is just so terrible. This is just so terrible for the people that really know what's going on. Okay. And so Joey's like, I appreciate that, but I feel like y'all can really benefit from some quality time. And said, but you know what? I'm going to take that rain check. And I said, Joey, you bet not. You bet not. is bonding with this boy after you done unalived his daddy, allegedly. Okay. So Vanessa hugs him as he leaves, and both Donnell and Jacob are looking at each other like, what the hell is going on here? So back at the Dupree house, Anita wants to talk to Nicole, like, what's bothering you? So Nicole mentions how Danny brought up how they have matching scars from their cheating ex. And so she says that she feels the way that she's been coping lately has been very Danny-esque. And I said, here we go with the Danny slander. So Anita was like, okay, I think you're overstating a little bit. And so Nicole has to remind Anita, I almost choked out of Leslie at Orphe Jeans. Okay. So Anita tells her, look, that was a momentary lapse because, you know, I slapped the shit out. Oh, too. Oh, I let that slip. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? And said, you're nowhere close to mimicking Hurricane Danny. I said, what is it with all the Danny smoke? So Anita realizes, you know what? You're not here to discuss Martin's marriage. You're here questioning the state of your own heart. So now we jump back over to the country club where Martin asked me if he recognizes, do you recognize what I'm wearing? Do you see? I know you see it. I know you see it. I say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, I'm gonna stop. So Smitty says, look, that's what you wore on our first day. Okay, you cute or whatever. And then they go back down memory lane. They talk about how they were trying to keep things under wraps until they decided to make things official. And so Smitty says that he misses that time because he was able to take Martin places that the Duprees have never been, like all these chain restaurants. They probably went to TGI Fridays, Applebee's, you know, all that stuff. Because, you know, the Duprees, if it ain't the country club or Orphe Jeans or Uptown, they ain't got it to do. All right. I mean, y'all can at least dabble with a little Ruth Chris. I'm just saying. Anyway, so then he notices one of Martin's VIPs, Mr. and Mrs. Cortez. And so he was like, oh, you know, if you want to go holler at them real quick, I'll wait and, you know, while you do your thing. And so Martin was like, well, we're on a date. Nah. Martin asked, well, was that what it was like for you? You know, sitting around waiting on me while I did my thing? And Smitty admits, yeah, some of the time it was. And I wanted Smitty to say no, a lot of the time it was. So Martin says, look, let's talk about when we see each other in 10 years, you know, like they do on first dates. Let's talk about it. So he said, you know, I see myself in love with my husband, getting back to our first love, which is politics, raising our kids, being happy and more in love than ever. And then he tells Smitty that, you know, if we would have never met, you might have had a Pulitzer Prize right now. Smitty said, and there's still time. Okay. There's still time for that. So Martin admits, you know, I can't believe a man like myself would even want to get in the way of your work. And I said, you may be surprised, but we, the audience who watch you verbally and emotionally A-word your husband since the start of this show, are not. We're not surprised. Smitty goes up for him. Well, you know, you were just making desperate moves because you were scared. No, you were husband. We got to call a thing a thing. Even if you're not talking about, and I was literally having a conversation with somebody on the phone, like before I got up here, even if we're not talking about the secret that you kept from him, the way that you went in on him, how he was just supposed to be a house husband and take care of them kids. He was never supposed to question you or ask you anything, and you could come and go as you please. You didn't want the man to have a job. Yeah, Martin, you were never that guy. No shade. No tea, no shade. So Martin said, well, look, I'm still scared because I feel like we're doing all the things. We're doing therapy. We're doing the date nights. And, you know, I just wonder if it's still going to be enough to keep you. And I said, not if you keep A-wording that man. I'm happy that you recognize and you're taking accountability. But guess what? Guess what comes along with accountability, Martin? Change. What did Jaheim say? I'm not wilding out like I'm used to. I don't do the things I used to no more. Hey, I changed for you. So back at Bill's house, Haley said, I'm trying to put you to bed. I'm going to put you to bed. And then conveniently with Bill, he gets a text from Keegan letting him know that Andre over here at the Orphe Jeans. So Bill said, you know what? Me and Caroline, that was Caroline hit my line, and I got to go take this meeting, leaving Haley in suspicion because she's like, well, what happened to me putting you to bed? And so That's when Haley calls Caroline for confirmation and she learns there is no meeting. Okay. And so then she picks up her purse and runs out, stomping out the house. And I said, girl, if you knew better, you would do better. Nicole tells Anita that she doesn't need to worry about her heart because it's being demolished, like the house across the street, and she has no plans on rebuilding. Okay. And so Anita was like, well, if you shut down your life, then Leslie and that disappointment of a man went. So Nicole was like, are you really okay with Danny having a loveless marriage? And Anita tells her, look, girl, there's all kinds of love. Okay. And I'm for any relationship that's going to keep Danny from having a Bill Hamilton relapse. And I said, well, ain't that the truth? But Anita believes, Danny can't close off her heart forever, and neither can you. And so she tells her that, I'm not saying that you need a man, but having the right person beside you makes life much sweeter. And then she talks about, how she would have had an extraordinary life without Vernon, but what he gives her, the light, the love, and the heat. Okay. And she wants that for Nicole as well. And so Nicole says, well, I don't know if I even want that no more. And Anita calls her bluff and tells her, I've seen the sparkle in your eye for Carlton. Okay. And Nicole admits, well, I haven't minded spending time with him, but I never really looked at him in that way. And Anita says, well, you know what? He's smart. He's handsome. He's kind. Okay. And tells Nicole, he ain't got to be your forever, babe. Okay. She lets Nicole know that I think you and Danny got married way too young. You missed out on the fun of dating. And so Nicole was like, oh, so you had some fun? And she was like, yeah, girl. Please understand, Miss Anita Williams had a life before Mr. Dupree. Okay. I had at least 5 suitors not trying to knock at my door. Okay. And so she encourages Nicole, girl, get out here and date. Get dressed up. Feel yourself a little bit. You feeling myself. I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling my, We jump back over to the country club where Smitty tells Martin that, look, I'm not trying to revisit the hurt. And, I would have understood the secret, but it was the lies after the secret that broke us. Martin says that there's no way to take those mistakes back. And he wishes that they lived in a world where he could take full ownership. Martin insists, like, look, I really tried. And Smitty says, look, I believe that you tried. Okay. But there's other ways to build trust. So Smitty goes on to tell him that we spoke about it before, but you're becoming all the things that I wanted: considerate, romantic, and even a little nervous, which I can appreciate because it lets me know that you ain't out here taking me for granted like you have been these last, I don't know how many years. Because it sounds like it's been rocky ever since y'all brought them damn kids home. But anyway, so he also can appreciate, Martin allowing him to be who he needs to be, and says that, I believe that's where we went wrong, and I'm not going to do that no more. And I said, that's right, Smitty. So Martin tells him, and I don't want you to do that no more. I want us to be equals and partners, and I want to win you back. And Smitty tells him, look, you can stop because I think that we're ready. I'm ready to love you forever. Hey, love, come love me forevermore. I'm sorry. That's the old Tevin Campbell. I'm sorry. So anyway, he told Martin he can come back home. Now, Vanessa's reminiscing on raising the kids with Doug, and Jacob is like, all right, you know what? That's my clue I got to go to. Before he leaves, he tells Donnell and Vanessa, Doug was a good man, Savannah. So Vanessa notices that something is, still bothering Donnell. Okay, and so Donnell explains that he feels the way that Doug just passed, and they over there, basically throwing him back, toasting, you know what I'm saying? And Vanessa said, well, Doug would want you to raise a glass and toast to his life. And Donnell said, well, Doug would still be here if he hadn't raised his glass and gotten that damn car. And I said, yeah, that's valid. He questions, well, what happens if I end up like my damn daddy? And so then we see Andre picking up the food for Danny down at Orphe Jean's. And of course, he turns around and is confronted by big bad Bill Hamilton. That's just telling Donnell, you have it all wrong. Okay. Doug was an alcoholic. He was addicted to gambling. Okay. And he spun out. And she explains alcohol was a symptom, not a cause. And so Donnell worries, well, What if I don't see it in myself for Deanna, and brings up how fragile Deanna is and how the fact that, she didn't come to the memorial. Vanessa defends her and said, but she got the flu. What you want her to do? Vanessa lets him know that Doug's struggles are not some curse, right? That's passed down to them. She said, you're going to thrive. And that's what your daddy would tell you if he was here right now. Donnell makes a toast to his father and how, he's everything that he wants to be. Haley done ran over to Danny's house, right? And she's screaming, looking for Bill. And she's like, Bill, bring your ass down here. I know you in here. Danny is like, have you considered obedience school since, Bill humps anything that moves? And so Haley is still looking behind every door, yelling for Bill, reveal yourself. Okay. And so Danny is enjoying this moment. She's relishing in it. And she asks Haley, well, what excuse did Bill give you? Okay. It gets pretty cold when Bill's spotlight on you dims. I know how that feels. Tried to tell you that. So Haley asked Danny, well, do you ever get tired of being a pain in the butt? No, bitch, I don't. So Danny started asking, well, who is it? I mean, is it Caroline? All the niggas know she's mighty fine, mighty fine. They know. I told y'all about Caroline. And apparently Haley's like, oh my God, that was so low. Even for you, Danny. So Danny reminds her, look, I warned you, the past is the prologue. Okay. Haley said, well, I'm the one warning you, bitch. Okay. You have your own husband. Stay the hell away from mine. So then Haley stomps out and Danny starts to wonder, well, where is Bill really? Because this bitch over here acting crazy in my house. So what is it for real? Back at Orphe Jean's, Andre tells Bill, look, I need to hurry on and get my wifey because she likes everything nice and hot. Okay. And so Bill calls Andre, look, you a comedian, you a gigolo with a lot of hoes. And so Andre said, okay, vintage vocab. But tells Bill, it sounds about right. And says, I'm just the guy who's, making a living off of lonely women with deep pockets. And so Bill asks, well, oh, do you prefer to be called a gold digger? Andre lets him know, no, I got my own money. And Danny isn't just some desperate rich lady. She's the sexiest woman in the world. I said, you better. He said only a damn fool would have kicked her to the curb. And he tells Bill, out of the two of them, maybe he was the gigolo because he was the one that was struggling when he met Danny. And Bill said, look, you better, look, little ninja, you better watch yourself. You weren't even pulling your pants up when me and Danny met. And Bill starts to warn Andre, look, if you hurt Danny, and Andre says, oh, no, I ain't gonna hurt her. Because that's your thing. That's what you do. I'm taking better care of my wife than you ever did. I loved it. Bill warns Andre, I'm watching your ass. So Martin walks into the Dupree house and tells Anita, girl, Gran, you ain't gotta wait up for me. I saw you reading your book, and she's like, well, your mama was here earlier, and she said it's clear that the love is there between you and Smitty, but it's taking a sweet time, and your grandfather really wants your ass up out of here. She didn't say that, but I'm saying that. So Martin tells her, well, Smitty asked me to come home for real this time. And she's like, yay. Vernon gonna be happy. I'm not so happy because I'm sitting up here waiting on Vernon. But Vernon gonna be happy. So Smitty runs into Nicole in his house. And he's like, oh, hey, Nicole. And this goes back to the live chat. Ain't nobody got no locks, no doors. What are we doing? So she says, look, I left gifts for the kids under their pillow, just a little something, There's something, something. Not like that, but you know what I'm saying? And so Smitty decides, well, I just want to let you know, me and Martin decided to move back in. And she was like, Smitty, do you really want to do that? And I said, well, what the, Nicole, you've been sitting here asking this man to get back with your girl, bye. I can't. So Donnell tells Vanessa that although he's happy that she had Joey, he doesn't want her to look to outsiders for support. And, that's why he's here now. And Vanessa is like, I appreciate your efforts, but I need you to, you need to focus on your youth and going to school and doing all the things. And then Vanessa goes into an explanation about how, Joey is her business partner, but he's taken a place in her life that she didn't expect. So I think she's getting ready to prep these kids for what's happening. And she said, but he's a friend that she needs. So back at the Smarty house, Smitty explains to Nicole that, look, I know how it looks. So Nicole said, I hate that we're in the same boat, but I know Martin's not Ted. And so Nicole said, although it's not for me, I got to ask because I don't think Martin is equipped for the back and forth. Smitty says, I think me and Martin have reached a tipping point back to each other. And so Nicole asked, well, what clicked? She's tipping into her therapist hat. And so he says, well, when the door shut and Martin walked out that motherfucker, and I realized that shit was real and he really wasn't coming back and he was like standing on business, that was it. And I felt more empty. Nicole tells Smitty, well, missing him is not forgiving him. And I said, well, it's about time you acted like a therapist. Okay. And so Smitty tells her, well, it's a process, but he sees Martin making changes. And that's the biggest point. He's making the changes. And so he's acknowledging what went wrong and accepting the ground between them as equals, no secrets. And Nicole is just elated at the news. And so I know how I came at y'all in my life, right? It was like, oh, Nicole, and I can't believe she did that. But at the end of the day, she proved herself and she did the right thing. It all flowed out. And she was in her therapist bag. I just need her to be more in her mama bag than her therapist bag. Does that make sense? Back at the Dupree house, Anita tells Martin, you know what? I'm gonna miss you. Sitting here, I'm reading these books on the couch by myself. I'm really gonna miss you. And but have you told the kids yet? And Martin was like, well, we're gonna let them know tomorrow. But I was like, Vernon clearly wants Martin out that house. Okay. He's trying to flip it and reverse it with Anita. And he can't do that with Martin popping up everywhere. Hey, Grands. Hey, Grands. Hey, Grands. Yeah, nobody can do nothing with that. So Bill comes home and tries to sex Haley, but she isn't interested. And that's all I got for y'all because I didn't care. But no, she's not interested, and she's fussing at him because she lets him know she knows he didn't have a meeting and he playing in her face. And Bill was like, I ain't got time. And yeah. And so Danny and Andre are eating dinner when Danny lets Andre know that Haley stopped by. Andre says, well, oh, let me let you know that Bill was down at the Orphe Jeans interrogating me. And that was Beyond the Gates, episode 147. This was Thursday's episode. If you have not already, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you comment. Please make sure that you subscribe if you like in a vibe, okay? And make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms. That's TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, IG, Blue Sky, and Eliminate. And I will catch y'all for 148. Be good, be safe, and I love y'all. Bye-bye.